We're going to lead off tonight with our headline topics. We're going to start with criminal justice reform. The Republican Liberty Caucus of Minnesota has joined with Liberty Minnesota in a broad bipartisan coalition of civil engagement organizations to advocate for the restoration of voting rights for felons who've been released from incarceration and live among us in the community on probation or parole. This has been perhaps the most controversial position that we've taken as an organization, both within our membership and amongst the broader Republican community. Over the weekend, Hennepin County Sheriff Rich Stanek laid out a comprehensive critique of what he called our one-size-fits-all criminal justice system, saying it treats people with mental illness and chemical dependency as if they were violent criminals. Elsewhere, in a piece for USA Today, author Harlan Reynolds points out that we now have so many laws on the books that you are probably breaking the law right now. Neil, I'm looking at you.
Right.
Karl, what role do you see felon voting restoration playing in combating an ever-expansive criminal justice system?
Yeah. Well, I really appreciated Sheriff Stanek's comments in there because it took a microcosm. It took one example and made it in a larger accusation for the criminal justice system as a whole. And felon voting is the same way. It's a small aspect of a larger problem. What I think the big problem is as Sheriff Stanek pointed out, was we're looking at the two differences between justice and social problem solving. And a lot of us assume that justice equals incarceration, that you can only be just if you throw bad guys in prison. I don't think that's necessarily that's not the one-size-fits-all policy that Stanek was talking about, and I don't think that's one that's smart for our government and for our society. So the felon voting, for instance, is saying you're out of prison, you made a mistake, but you have rights back, you get your civil rights back. And I think Sheriff Stanek wants to address things as they come, as they will. And Rand Paul's been great about that as well, where let's look at criminal justice in sections and stop with this one-size-fits-all, throw everybody in prison and clean our hands up and we're good for another day. It's not cost-effective, it's not just, and I don't think it's fair to anybody. So felon voting is one aspect of that, but I think we got a long way to go.
Neil, what other reforms could we look to beyond felony voting restoration to address the concerns cited by Sheriff Stanek and Mr. Reynolds in these op-eds?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it's funny that the cuckoo clock went off. I think it was in your house, Walter, because
yes, absolutely.
Because frankly, a lot of people, and I'm really surprised at the pushback we're getting from Republicans who think that we are cuckoo for wanting to pursue this. I mean, to talk about the other reforms. I mean, to me personally, one of the biggest challenges we have here is something you alluded to, is that everything's a crime. I mean, we need to truly start reforming our criminal justice system. We need to start rolling back these laws where everything's a crime. And I think that, a lot of times these laws are brought up because something bad happens and well-meaning people who happen to be legislators create laws and criminalize everything. The thing is, you're not going to reform behavior just by passing a law saying you can't do it. So I just think, on a broader scale, we really need to look at as a wholesale all of the laws that we pass and everything that is a crime. And there's the term that Liberty people like to talk about is the victimless crime. I say we start there, start repealing back these victimless crimes, and that ends up having a cascade effect. Fewer crimes, fewer people in prison, fewer people where we have to even worry about the fact that they can't vote when they're out of jail.
Yeah, the point that I like to make on this, because in the pushback that I've received in being a public advocate on this, as all three of us have been, is you get this argument of something to the effect of being for felons or being for crime or being soft on crime or what have you. And it kind of evokes this narrative of being tough on crime, which is kind of the perpetual, really easy political point to score, right? We're going to be tough on crime. And if by crime you mean actual violations of people's rights, then by all means, yes, we should be tough on crime, and we should do that utilizing incarceration as one of our primary means of affecting justice, which is the objective of the justice system. But if by crime you simply mean any violation of any statutory law or ordinance or what have you, well, now you've opened up, in the current context, the modern context, you've opened it up to the fact that we've basically have criminalized life. Like existing is a criminal act under the status quo. And
Right.
so, if you're going to say be tough on crime in that context, what you're really advocating for is a kind of a naked tyranny. So that's part of the reason why I personally support the felon voting registration initiative. But it's not where the process needs to stop. We need to move forward with broader criminal justice reforms that really take a look at, as both of you guys said, what is the nature of crime, what ought to be a crime, and how we ought to treat it.
Well, honestly, I think a lot of it comes with this notion that poverty, there's high correlation and causation rates, right, between poverty and crime. And that's not a topic that we Republicans really want to address or think we're qualified to address, rightfully or wrongfully, that poverty causes crime. But if we want to look at the war on drugs, like Neil referenced, let's look at poverty, let's look at race, let's look at gentrification and see how these crimes and how being tough on crime, how throwing people in jail for drug possession ruins lives, ruins generations, and ruins neighborhoods. That's exactly the kind of message that we Republicans have a chance to say, hey, no, I'm on your side, and this doesn't make sense fiscally, it doesn't make sense social justice-wise, which I know we're scared to talk about, and it doesn't make sense from a justice standpoint. So if we want to be tough on crime, let's really address the social problems and relook at our criminal justice system. And at the same time, we can show a lot of empathy, which none of us and none of our parties really known to show.
Well, I have a great idea. Let's outlaw poverty, and then we just works, right? Oh, wait a second.
I don't think it's been tried yet. We can give it a shot.
If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to the RLC Minnesota YouTube channel. And if you'd like to join the fight for individual rights, limited government, and free markets, become a member of the RLC at rlcminnesota.org.